Hi. The 5 most common questions I receive about literature reviews are: how many articles should I include? What's the range of years that I should address? Can I include articles that offer contradictory positions? What's the main thing I should avoid? And how do I conclude my literature review? So here it goes. Question number 1. How many articles should I include? Unfortunately, there's no recipe that can give you specifically how many articles you should include. The most important thing that you should keep in mind is that reading your literature review and checking your references, the reader has the indication that you have covered the ground, you know what you're talking about, and you did not overlook a particular area and you didn't address. So, is it 5 articles? Definitely not. No matter how small the scope of the research that you are conducting, a literature review with 5 articles is a very weak one. Should it be 100 articles? It all depends on what you are doing. If you are conducting your dissertation, definitely you're not going to limit it with a 2-digit number of articles. Your references should go beyond 30, 40, if not more, if you're doing a thesis or a dissertation. If you are working on a small scope research project, a relative number that could be helpful for you if you want a guiding number would be in the 20s, 20 references or so on. But please do not make use of this as a guiding number. What really needs to guide you is whether you've covered your ground and you've addressed the main areas of focus. Remember that some of the references that you use, you only include a couple of numbers from them. So if you are justifying your research project with the number like Statistics Canada, if you're taking some resources from Statistics Canada to support and justify the importance of the topic you're addressing, I won't count that as a reference. It's just a stats reference, but in your reference list, it'll be there. So if we're talking about research articles or studies that you need to address, always go for more than 20 something in order to give the indication that you've covered the basic grounds. And if you are having a bigger scope of a research, then definitely the number increases. Question number 2, what range of years should you include? Similar to many or all aspects of research, there's no real recipe that you can abide by. However, what is very important for you is you do not want to seem that you are dated in your literature review. You don't want to look as if you didn't do your due diligence all the way to the current time. So definitely you need to focus on the last 5 years, for example, especially if the topic is extremely contemporary. So for example, if you're talking about technology integration, you cannot include articles that stop at 2020, for example, and we are currently finishing 2023. You have to be as contemporary and as recent as possible. That being said, depending on the topic that you have and you're addressing, there are certain classic articles that go way beyond and earlier than those 5 to 10 years that you're focusing on. So there's nothing wrong. On the contrary, if you ignore a classic article that had guided the discussion in your area of study, such as Nature of Science, for example, which it's not changing every day. So there are some prominent articles that go in that field. There's nothing wrong in including that. So make sure that in your review you have the full scope of classic articles and more recent articles. Question number 3, can I include contradictory articles? Yes, you can, and actually that is required to a certain extent, because if you are going to show that you understand the scope of the topic that you're addressing, and in order to highlight that you are not biased, and in order to identify that gap that your project is covering, you need to include different positions or different outlooks to the topic that you have. So yes, include contradictory. However, don't include them and stop at that. You need to integrate where your research will be answering or bringing together those contradictory points, or what's the gap between those two positions that your research is trying to address. The main thing to avoid, always, 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 is plagiarism. Make sure that you don't fall into the trap of plagiarism even without you noticing it. Abide by formal citation methodologies. Do not overuse quotes. I've seen a lot of submissions or papers submitted by individuals or students where they over-rely on quotes in order to avoid plagiarism. You can protect yourself from plagiarism by paraphrasing and citing. As long as you are offering the citation, there's nothing wrong in that. Over-reliance on quotes does not support your literature review, because you do not want to seem or give the indication that your literature review is a copy-paste from different perspectives. You need to, or from different articles, you need to indicate how you have taken all that information and synthesized it into the argument that you're putting forth to support your research question. Last thing, how to conclude. It relates to what I was just saying earlier. The conclusion of your literature review should start with, or should include, a brief overview of what has been found so far, what are the main positions that the literature has, what's still missing, what's the gap, and most importantly, how does your research plan to answer that gap. I hope these questions or the answers for these questions are helpful for you. If you have any other questions, feel free to send me a note.